So this case happened back in June 1959, but it has been a case that was never, it was never, they never found the killer to this case. Never. The detective that actually took care of this case was a detective for 30 years, and he said that he had never worked a case that was this bad. This actually happened, well, they found the remains in El Paso, the Rio Grande, by the west side. And El Paso couple was fishing, and it was about 9:30 in the morning. And when they were fishing, they both noticed, like, well, a cardboard box, it was floating. They noticed that, but they didn't pay attention to the cardboard box. They just, let it ride. But about 20 minutes later, they found a, what they explained to be an expensive black suitcase, and it was submerged in the water, just floating around. And the man got curious. He went into the suitcase, he got it, but as soon as he got the suitcase, it smelled ugly. So he already knew what it was. It was back in 1959, so he didn't have a cell phone. He had to wait for like a passerby, a car. He stopped the car and he asked them to call authorities, and they did. So when they got there, the detectives were the ones that opened the case, because the man didn't open it. He didn't open the suitcase because he already knew. So when the detectives got there, they opened up the suitcase, and they found a torso, but it was a naked torso of a man, and the head had been severed by the neck. Both hands were gone. One of them was cut at the wrist, the other one was cut closer to the elbow, and the body had been skinned. They described it as it was skinned like a cow. That's how the detectives described it, right? So the torso itself, like the cuts, clean, clean. Kind of reminds me of the first season of Dexter. It was missing the crotch area, and the sexual organs of the man were mutilated, and the torso was wrapped around the newspaper, and it was an El Paso newspaper, and it was even dated the day before that the body was found. So after that, they immediately called everybody. They called everybody so they can search the Rio Grande, and about 2 miles out, they found a cardboard box. And inside that cardboard box, they found the lower part of the body. They found the legs, feet, and they were both severed below the knees. And inside of the box that they found an address, and it was a California address. But I don't think they didn't really do anything with that box. So later on, they kept searching. They finally found the legs because they were stuck on a branch or something like that. So after they examined all the pieces, they confirmed everything that they saw. The people who examined, they saw everything that, like, they confirmed everything, right? The skin had been removed from the back and the pelvic region. They stripped away like part of the scrotum, like the male parts, and every joint was clearly separated with no marks. Like, Detectives actually thought that this was either a butcher or even a surgeon. But Bailey, he was the officer who was in charge of this case, he said whoever killed him took the rest of the body parts, hands, skin to block identification. Some reporters back then were calling it the killer a sex fiend, but behind closed doors, and this was reported. Sheriffs did think that the person who did this was very familiarized with the person's anatomy. They found out that the remains belonged to a white male, either 25 to 45 years old, light brown hair, no gunshot wounds, no stab wounds, nothing besides the clean cuts. His shoe, the feet that they found, they say would have been a size 6.5, and which is a little weird because they said that the torso was that of a large athletic man, and you would think that a large athletic man has a bigger foot, which made them think that there might have been two bodies. But the pathologist that took care of that case said that he was almost convinced that it was the same person, but even the pathologist then still had like this little doubt that that didn't make sense, I guess. Not even to me, like you're a big man, size shoe 6, I don't know. But still, like, they still eventually came to the conclusion that it was the same person. And also, like, one thing the detective said was that when this person was skinning the torso, like, they took their time. They really took their time. Like, they were not in a rush. It's like they cleaned this body very well, very, very well. Immediately, the officers, they start checking motels, cabins, highways, missing people. Like, they start calling people, making everything public. And no, nothing. Like, it was said by investigators that the death was about 4 to 5 days earlier than what they found the body. And the officer Bailey actually thinks that they were dumped near Vinton, because Vinton is about 15 miles from El Paso, and there's also like bridges that they could have thrown the body in. So they did check those areas, but there was no tire tracks, there was no footprints, there was nothing for them to be like, this is exactly where they dropped them off, right? So after everything, they searched up and down, like everywhere, but they just couldn't find anything, right? They could not find anything. But they did they found a few things within the box. Like, for example, they found a linen towel that was possibly used by a butcher or a bartender, like those white ones. And all that was found within the suitcase. They found a piece of plain plastics, but they even found like the Ziploc bags. They went even far enough to go looking for who made those Ziploc bags. They searched so much that led it to nothing, right? So they started asking for missing people, right? And by around June 12th, or yeah, around that time, there was a man that was reported missing, and Officer Bailey, of course, like, he looked into this case, but the shoe size of that man was different. So they came to the conclusion, no, that's not the person. And meanwhile, but they did have like fingerprints, or no, they had blood. They had blood that the forensics or um, the other team, because I believe that they were from New Mexico, not from Texas. So the New Mexico authorities were communicating with Officer Bailey here in El Paso. So they kept just, going back and forth with evidence. But it was back in 1959, so they did collect blood that they thought it was for this missing person, but still, they had to wait on that. And meanwhile, they were waiting on that to be matched or not matched. They continued to search for the head and for the hands, because they hadn't found all of it yet, right? So later on, another name. Meanwhile, they were waiting for that first name. They got another name from another missing person. This missing person, he had gotten on a bus near El Paso, but he never got to his destination. But again, there was nothing like. It's just like they just kept adding, but to their missing files, they were not adding any evidence towards this case. So after the investigation, like, it had run dry, like, completely. They didn't have any new leads. Like, they were stuck. They were stagnant. So meanwhile, they're still waiting for that first victim, the first missing person. They were still waiting for that person's blood to come back to see if it matched. So in New Mexico, a few miles from El Paso, there was a couple of native boys horseback riding. They were horseback riding in the desert, and by July 6th, was it July 6th? Yeah, that's when they were out. They spotted another cardboard box, and in that cardboard box, the boys opened the box and they found human hands and intestines. And they did go straight to the officers in New Mexico. And the officers in New Mexico, they already knew about that case in El Paso. So what they did is they called El Paso within hours. And Officer Bailey was the one to go, right? Like, he went to see if it was the hands that he was missing, right? So when he got there, he saw like the hands. Immediately he saw that they were cleanly cut. These hands were cleanly cut. So he automatically, like, they already knew that it was going to probably be a match. And later on that week, I believe even it might have been the next day, there was another man that was working the same road that the kids were horseback riding in, when he came across this like half buried cereal box. And when he opened the cereal box, like, how random, right? You find the freaking cereal box and you open it. I guess because it was half buried, but inside was more organs. And yeah, there was more organs on there. So, but they still did not find the head. As a matter of fact, like, all the evidence that they found, they even found like this Mexican carpet out there, an oilcloth, window curtains, empty plastic bags. And these items were clean, but they had recently been discarded. And also, another thing that they found within these body parts was the newspaper from El Paso. And the newspaper was dated from June 16 and June 17, which is around the days that the body was found. And I mean, it was found wrapped around, like the newspaper as well. So, even well, even some of the plastic bags that they found out there were nearly identical to the ones that they found out here. So the suitcase was dropped on the river. The only thing that was still missing was the head. Okay, right now the only thing that was missing was the head. And so remember, by this time the blood came back at the same time that they found the rest. They came back with the very first victim. Well, the very first victim, no match. So they waited that whole time, no match. So they found the hands, right? But one of them was not, like, it was way too decomposed to even fingerprint. The other one gave two partial fingerprints, which only led to comparison for specific suspects, but it was not enough for a national file search. So for this entire case, like, I can just imagine the desperation of, like, the officer, because he had so many leads. Like, this man had so many leads, and none of them led to this person. Like, up to this day in 2025, they still have not found who killed this person. Like, they didn't find nothing, but they just said that this was one of the worst murders El Paso has seen. And up to this day, it's still not closed. Like, I think they've revisited that case a few times to the point where they solved other murder cases. That's because they found bones, they found heads, they found all this shit. None of them were this person's, leading people to think that this person wasn't even from El Paso. Like, they found people, they solved a murder, like, from California off of this case, and still nothing.